So I found an interesting Perush from the Magid of Mezritch that's brought down by Rabbi Yisrael, the Magid of Koznitz, his student, and his Perush, Remze Yisrael, which is a Perush on sefer Hatmunah. Now in sefer Hatmunah, the Medrash, sefer Hatmunah from the Rabbi Nechunya ben Akane and Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, it says here like this: Ki haluchos maaseh Elokim v'amichtav michtav Elokim, that the luchos were the act of Hashem and the written by Hashem. Nimichtav Elokim Chaim, the living God. Ki sham haosios al shem hamidos v'tzuros haosios mitzuros haosios helyonos. Because there the letters are representative of the different supernal attributes, and the image of the letters to the image of the supernal letters. Mi kedem, from the beginning. Kol achas shma mitoch kocha, each name of the letter represents its name. Be'ez shviras haluchos, and when the luchos were broken, parchu haosios l'mayla, the letters flew up above, went up above. Ki ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu laharos habinyan, because the Holy One, blessed be He, wanted to destroy the building, what was built. Lahasim koach osios l'mayla b'mekoman, and to bring up the letters, to put them in their place above. Va'achaz Moshe b'koach os tziyuro, and Moshe grabbed the strength of the letter of his image. Ke'inyan v'haya kasher yarim Moshe yado v'gavar Yisrael. Like the pasuk says that when Moshe lifts up his hands, and Yisrael becomes stronger. So he strengthened Yisrael by holding up the letters. So you could imply that either he was lifting it up, or he was holding it and preventing it from going all the way up, in order to gain grasp on to that godly strength, or something like that. And we're going to see that this has to do with the letter Hey in particular, or the letter Zayin also, but especially the letter Hey here, which makes up the two words Yad and Dai. The Yado, his hand, that the Hey is made up of Yud and Dalet. And in the sefer Hatmunah continues like this: Ki ha'avos tzoroseim b'lo chibur, because the fathers, the image of their letters are without attachment. Ukish Yisrael chutin lahavaya. And we're going to see that this refers to different kinds of letters, the simple letters and the attached letters that are composite of more than one letter together. And whether or not the letters are attached to each other or simple. And when Israel sins to Hashem, so the three images from the Avos, the letters that they represent, with like we said, that they represent the midos, the letters represent the midos. So the avos, who are representative of the midos as well, they have a representative letters that correspond to their midos. So these three images, the three concepts, the three letters stand up. And the Holy One, blessed be, looks at them, looks at these letters, looks at the avos. So he says, oh, I remember the covenant of Yaakov, Afes Brisi Avraham, and even the covenant of Avraham, and so forth. I will remember, and I will remember the land. Yaakov bo Iker Hazchira, because in Yaakov is the main remembrance. Al Ken Hischil bo, and that's why it starts with Yaakov. And And when Israel sins to Hashem, mispardos or misparkos atzuros. So these images, these letters, they are broken, they're taken apart, v'holchim in lakoman, and they go back to their place, just like when the luchos broke and the letters flew up. Remez ki nistalka mehem hashchina. So it hints to how the Shechina goes up away from Israel when they sin. Moshe b'chlal ha'avos. So Moshe is included with the avos then in this. In the merit of Moshe, we have forgiveness, and here's Moshe is got forgiveness for the sin of the calf and the meraglim. And like we said here, that he lifts up his hand to hold on to the imagery of the letters so that they don't go up, and we can still have forgiveness. Midas Yitzchak Mishune. So we mentioned Yaakov, we mentioned Avraham. Yaakov is the main one, and Moshe as well. But Yitzchak is different. In his imagery, in this letter that represents him, Kizesod Amok Lo Chibur Lo Pirud, because Yitzchak's letter represents a deep secret where it's not connected and it's not divided. So usually you have Chibur and Pirud, the two opposites of godliness and unity, and the opposite of that is Pirud, division. And here you have a concept where Lo Chibur V'Lo Pirud, it's not unity and it's not division. Ki hi emtsois lekol hakochos, because it is in the middle of all the strengths, of all the abilities, zeh b'soch zeh, whether it's one in the other, or zeh lamayla mizeh, or one above the other, or zeh lamata mizeh, or one below the other. They're called mimachzav echad, and it's all coming cut out from one place. Via sorefes habasamim hatovim, and it's what burns the good spices. Asher b'ketoras, that are in the ketoras. Ha'ola kalil, and the korban ola goes up. V'reach b'smeim ad elokim yavod varshnehem, and a spirit, a pleasing spirit of their fragrance goes up into Elokim, to both of them, to both of these sides, either Chibur and Pirud, or whatever concept, the two concepts that are attached here. Now, if you look in the commentary here, it says, that the Holy One, blessed be He, wanted to destroy the building. As to say the concepts and acts of Israel with their sin of the calf. And Moshe grabbed on to the strength of his letter, of the image. So Moshe's letter corresponds with the Zion, and he grabbed onto that which corresponds with Midas HaNetzach. Midaso, Klomer Nischazik Bekoach Midaso Lispal Hashem. That is to say, what does it mean he grabbed onto the letter? That he strengthened himself to grab onto and be attached to his attribute was to overcome and be Minatseach, to dive into Hashem, Lahashiv Osios Laluchos, to get forgiveness, to bring back the letters to the Luchos. That's why Moshe was the one who brought back the letters to the Luchos in the second one. Lahasir Kaso, to get rid of the anger. Lasalik Charon Apo Mehem. And that's the Perush. Avala Avos. But the Avos, Yeshlem Tzuros Blishum Chibur. So the Avos have their letters without connection. Kamo Dalit LaAvraham Bechesed. So Avram corresponds with kindness, and that corresponds with, in this context, the Dalid. Avav liYaakov b'Tiferes, and the Vav to Yaakov is in Tiferes. So v'hakei b'midas Yitzchak, and the hey corresponds with Yitzchak. Midas Gvura, which is the attribute of strictness. So when Israel sins to the Hashem may be blessed, the letters, the imagery of the letters goes away, gets broken up. And they go back up to their source. and the midos is well as well. V'ha'avos tovsim b'tzuras, and the avos then grab onto their imagery. Ratzalom b'koach osios ha'ela, with the strength of these letters, these attributes. Shema midos shelahem, v'omdos b'kom of zekufa, and they stand tall and lifnei Hashem, to stand in front of Hashem. The avos also do this. They also stand in front of Hashem. They spalal bad Yisrael, to pray for the sake of Israel. Hashem mabit bahem bechemlason. Hashem gazes at them with His mercy. V'zocher es briso, and remembers His covenant. Dechsiv zacharti es brisi Yaakov v'chulu. Like it says, I remembered my covenant with Yaakov. V'afes brisi Avram eskor, v'artz eskor. It says, I remember my covenant with Avraham and the land. Lama hiskil b'Yaakov. Why does it mention? It start with Yaakov. Mepnei shu rom is liyichud shabaso shu ikra hazechira. Because it hints to the unity of the Shabbases, which is the main remembrance. L'chein kishat suros mispardos v'olos lemekoman. So Yaakov is Tiferes, which is, I guess, it corresponds with Shabbos, and Hashem remembers Shabbos. So if the letters do go up, so the Shekhinah is going away from Israel. He doesn't yet explain what does it mean that it says that the letters were without chibur yet. Moshe is included in this concept of the avos. So these letters, the Dalid and the Vav and the Hey, don't have a connection. They're not a composite of letters. They're a concept for themselves. They're not two letters attached. So Zayin as well is like this. In the same kinds of letters that the Avos have. Therefore, the prayer of Moshe, Tefillah LaMoshe, goes up like the Avos. Usually we talk about how David is the fourth regel. Here's a different concept. Where you have Chesed Gvura Tiferes, and then Netzach Chod Yesod, you would have right after Tiferes is Netzach, and that's Moshe. Moshe is the fourth one. Right after him, and he's included in this concept. And these midos, so that's Tefillah LaMoshe. David would be Tefillah LaAni. But here we have Tefillah LaMoshe, and each of these letters are unique in that they're avos. They're the fathers, meaning to say that these are letters that are not composite of other letters. But Yitzchak is an outlier here in his letter, which is Hey, which is composed of two parts. But the two parts are not attached. They're not attached. But there's not pirud either, because it's one letter. Therefore, right, the Yud and Dalid are not attached to each other of Yitzchak. Shikro os achas, to be called one complete letter. But you can't say that it's two either. So there's no unity and there's no division. Even though there are two, os achas nikro, it's considered one letter. In this context, Yitzchak corresponds with Malchus. Avraham is with. So in general, Avraham is with Chesed, and Yitzchak is with Gvura, and Yaakov is Tiferes, and Moshe is Malchus. But this context, this letter of Yitzchak, which is the Hey, actually corresponds with Malchus. Shehi ba'atzma hatzilus hatzila habraim, because Malchus is what emanates the creations themselves. That's the culmination of the structure of the different spheros, and where you see the actual creation happening, it's through Midas Malchus. So Malchus, in that sense, is also unique. And certain Lashonos are brought about Malchus, that's Imohem Chibur v'lo b'yichud, something like that. There's a certain Lashon about Malchus, how representing how it goes down into the lower levels of creation. And this is like this idea here of the hay is composed of both unity and division. It's the, so to speak, level in between the unity of Atzilus and the division of the lower levels. Hey zos hi daled yud. So here you have the daled and the yud. Shurom is or gadol or cotton, which is a big light and a small light. Hadaled hu or gadol asher b'yesod. So the daled in this context of the hay, the daled is yesod. Letzorach haneshamos, and that's for the souls. Vayud hu or cotton asher letzorach hagufim b'olam hashafel. And the yud is a small light for the purpose of the bodies in the lowest world, the lowest level. Therefore, the soul and the body seem to be two things, but really they're one. In one letter. And even though this hay is two abilities, we see that one seems to be higher than the other, the soul higher than the body, and so forth. Means they're one below the other. Yud daled or daled yud. Like sometimes it's spelled yad, like a hand, like the hand of Moshe, or dai, as we're going to see, to say enough. The creation. But nonetheless, it all comes and is cut from one place. That the hay of Malchus is coming from originally the hay of Bina. When you have Hashem's name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the hay, the first hay corresponds with the Bina, and the last hay corresponds with Malchus. And the concept of the hay of Malchus is coming from the hay of Bina in its source. And the Malchus, so to speak, spreads the incense. It sprinkles the incense that is proper to emanate. Just like the language of Ketoris is there to unite and attach in the world of Atzilus, so too Besamim is there to spread out and sprinkle, so to speak. The concept of division and the concept of unity are both in these two words, Ketoris and Besamim. And they're one word, Ketoris Samim. The Ketoris is lekater, to attach and tie the levels of Atzilus. And the Besamim is to sprinkle and spread out, effluviate the fragrance into the lower worlds, into the emanation. Or into its, even in Atzilus itself. It's the concept of spreading out, whereas Ketar is to attach and reunite. Like the hay, like the Yud, the Dalit and the Yud and the hay. Ukamo ha'ola, and this is just like the Korban Ola, Shuhu liyachid kol dvarim haroim la'atzilus, which is to unite all the things that are proper for emanation. V'reach bismen, and the smell of their incense. So the Ketoris fixes this, right? Just like Ketoris atones, and you want to bring down the letters, you want to bring down forgiveness. So that's a concept of Ketoris, but also a Korban Ola. Ad Elokim, which goes up to Elokim, Shia Bina, which corresponds with Bina. Yavud Varshneim will come both of these things, both of these levels, or ad Tiferes, Shua Yichud, or until Tiferes. Yavud Varshneim Kolomar, Sham Yisyachad, a call there will be, everything will be united. So that's the sefer Hatmunah itself, and the Perush on sefer Hatmunah from the Makubal, who we don't know the name. But in Remzei Yisrael from the Magid of Koznitz, he says like this. He brings down the quote, Kisod Amoku lo chibur v'lo pirud, this is the hay, is a deep secret. It's not unity and it's not division. He says, and he says, because this is, you have different letters, and some of the letters are composed of others, like let's say the mem is composed of a chaf or a nun and a vav, and the lamed is a chaf and a vav on top, and the aleph is a yud and a vav in the middle, and other letters are also composite. But here you have the hey, which is not a composite letter. It's also not a pashut. It's not a letter that's not composite, that's simple, that is not composed of things. So it's in between them. It's in between these two levels. And that's why with this letter the world is created. Like we know, with yud the world to come was created. With hey, this world was created. Or in this context, it says that the dalet is the big light for the neshama, and the yud is the small light for the. That's the Perush. That's the Perush in the Perush. But here he's saying like this: we know the hey. This world was created with the letter hey. Pshutos lechasadim. Now the simple letters correspond with kindnesses. Yud kodem l'dalet nisha yud nises yad. And so when the yud becomes before the dalet, if we have a hey, and you have, the combination is yud dalet, then it's a yad. It lifts up the hand, like Moshe Rabbeinu lifted up the hand to bring down flow, l'tein shefa, and to force the letters to not go up, and to keep them from flying up. Now, if you have the yud after the dalet, it says it's like we say, the hey is the better poverty. The of Daled Yud. The hey lach ma'anya di achalu avasana ba'arad mitzrayim. That D is the Daled Yud. That our forefathers ate in Egypt, it's impoverished because you do not have the flow. Vulash and die, and it's also representing the language of enough, like Shamar Lamodai. In terms of creation, you have a flow, but you also have enough. I'm not going to give any more. It's a concept of Dvin, it's a concept of Gvura, it's a stopping the flow. Shemagbil Hashefa, Lechin B'Nesias Kapayim, and therefore, when you lift up your hands to do Birchas Kohanim, Nosein Shefel Yisrael, that is giving, that's why it's a concept of giving flow to Israel. By lifting up your hands is this concept of revealing these letters, holding on to the letters that were flying up, and to reveal them downwards as a bracha to Israel. So derech gever be'alman, this is the secret of the way of the man with the lady. Because it's a concept of the flow towards Malchus, from Yisod to Malchus. Like it says in the Perush, that the Dalet is Yisod. And the Hey in general is Malchus. It's bringing this down into the lower worlds, to give a bracha to Israel. And then the blessing is without dai. Right? Ad bli dai, without the Dalet Yud. Shemaiti Memori Dovber. And this is what I heard from my master, from my teacher, Dovber, the Magid of Mezritch.